My younger sister stole my fiancé 1 week before my wedding and got pregnant. My parents forced me to cancel everything to support her. But when she died years later, what they asked left me speechless. I'm 28 years old. I work as a financial analyst at a small firm. And I need to get this story off my chest, because what happened 5 years ago, I basically destroyed my relationship with my family and took me to such a dark place that honestly, I don't know how I survived. The thing is that now, after everything, the wounds are still there, but somehow I found a way to move forward, and I guess telling this helps me process everything I went through. I don't know. Maybe someone else has been through something similar and understands how complicated all of this is. I should start from the beginning, when things were still normal. Or at least I thought they were. I grew up in a not very big town. Typical place where everyone knows each other and news travels fast. You know the type. My family was my parents, my sister Samantha, who's 5 years younger than me, and me. Samantha was always the spoiled one, the baby of the family, and looking back, I should have seen it coming because my parents literally gave her everything she asked for. I was the older daughter, the responsible one, the one who got good grades and never caused problems, but Samantha could do whatever she wanted and my parents always found a way to justify it. Like, if I came home 10 minutes late, it was a scandal, but if Samantha disappeared all night, my parents would say she was at the age to experiment. That's how ridiculous everything was. When I met Joshua, I was 22. I had just graduated from college and had gotten my first real job. I met him at a bar where I had gone with my best friend Natalie, who's been my friend since kindergarten. We literally know each other from our whole lives. Joshua worked in construction. He was one of those guys who make you feel safe just by being around, you know? Tall, with that smile that melts you. And the truth is, we hit it off incredibly from the first moment. We started dating, and it was one of those relationships where everything flows naturally. No drama, no silly fights. My parents adored him. Samantha also seemed to get along well with him. And I thought I had finally found my person. Like the person I was going to build my life with. After 3 years of dating, Joshua proposed to me. And when I say it was perfect, I'm not exaggerating. He did it on the beach at sunset, with Natalie hiding taking pictures because he knew I would want to remember that moment forever. Obviously, I said yes. And we started planning the wedding right away. We had decided to get married like 6 months after the engagement. Nothing too elaborate but nice, with our families and close friends. I was on cloud 9. Literally the happiest woman in the world. Planning every detail of the wedding. Looking for the perfect dress. Imagining our life together. What I didn't know, and this is what kills me to this day, is that Samantha had started flirting with Joshua as soon as we got engaged. She was like 20 years old at that time. She was in college but still lived at my parents' house because, according to her, she wanted to save money. Although the truth is, my parents paid for everything. Joshua and I went to my parents' house often, like several times a week, because my mom insisted on helping me with the wedding preparations, and Samantha was always there. Always finding excuses to stay in the same room, to casually touch Joshua, to make comments that I thought were innocent, but that now I understand weren't at all. The thing is, the affair started just a few weeks after our engagement. Joshua later confessed to me that Samantha had sought him out one day when I was working late, that she had gone to his apartment with the excuse of needing help with something at my parents' house, and that one thing led to another. I don't know whether to believe him or if he was the one who started everything. Honestly, it doesn't matter anymore because they're both equally guilty in my opinion. What I do know is that they kept seeing each other in secret for months. Literally during the months when I was planning my wedding, choosing flowers, trying on dresses, dreaming about my future with this man. 1 week before the wedding, my parents called me for an urgent family meeting. They said it was important, that they needed to talk to me about something serious, and I thought maybe they wanted to give me extra money for the honeymoon or something. I don't know. I never imagined what was coming. I arrived at my parents' house, and everyone was there. My parents, Samantha, Joshua, and even Joshua's parents. Everyone with serious faces. Nobody looked me in the eyes. And I started to feel that something was very wrong. Like that feeling in your stomach that tells you your life is about to change forever. My father was the one who spoke first. He said there was a situation they needed to resolve before the wedding, that it was something delicate, but that the family had to stay together. And then my mother, with tears in her eyes but not really, crying, said that Samantha was pregnant. I was confused at first. Like, okay, my sister is pregnant. That has nothing to do with my wedding. right? But then nobody said anything else. Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to understand something I still wasn't processing. It was Samantha who finally said it. With that little voice she used when she wanted to play victim, she said the baby was Joshua's, that she was 9 weeks pregnant, that she was very sorry, but that they had fallen in love. I swear I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. It's like my brain shut down to protect me from the pain. What I do remember is that Joshua tried to explain, saying he never meant for it to happen, that it was a mistake, that he still loved me, and I just laughed because what else could I do? My sister, my younger sister, the person I was supposed to care for and protect, had been sleeping with my fiancé for months, was pregnant with his baby, and my family knew about it and had organized this meeting as if it were something that could be resolved with a civilized conversation. The worst part, what really destroyed me, was when my mother said they had to think about the baby, that Samantha was younger and needed the family's support, that I was strong and would find someone else. Can you believe it? My own mother chose my sister over me in that moment, as if all the pain and betrayal were less important than the fact that Samantha had gotten pregnant. My father just nodded with everything my mother said, and Joshua's parents tried to apologize, but without really taking responsibility for anything, saying that young people make mistakes, that these things happen. I got up from the table and walked straight to Samantha. She looked at me with those big eyes, and I gave her the hardest slap of my life. The sound resonated throughout the room, and for a second, nobody moved. Nobody said anything. Then I told them all to go to hell, that I never wanted to see any of them ever, again, and I left that house knowing I was never going to return. Joshua tried to follow me, but I screamed at him not to come near me, that he had ruined my life, that I hoped he was happy with my sister and their baby. The next few days were hell. I had to cancel the wedding, call all the guests, return gifts, deal with questions from people who didn't understand what had happened. Natalie was the only one who was with me the whole time, sleeping at my apartment because she was afraid I would do something stupid, forcing me to eat even though I wasn't hungry, putting up with my crying fits that came without warning at any time of day or night. My family tried to contact me. My parents called saying we needed to talk, that I couldn't cut off contact just like that. But I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails without reading them, refused to respond to any attempt at communication. 2 weeks after that horrible meeting, Joshua and Samantha got married in a private ceremony. I found out on Facebook, obviously, because although I had blocked my family, we still had mutual acquaintances and news travels fast in a small town. Seeing the photos of my ex-fiancé marrying my sister was like receiving another stab. But honestly, at that point I was already so emotionally numb that I just felt this deep emptiness, like they had ripped my soul from my body, and what was left was just an empty shell. I decided to leave town. I couldn't keep living in the same place where everyone looked at me with pity, where every corner reminded me of Joshua, where I ran the risk of running into my family at the supermarket. I moved to a city like 3 hours away, got a new job that paid less but allowed me to start over, and I thought that was going to help. Spoiler alert, it didn't help at all. If anything, I got worse, because now I was alone in a new city without my support network, without Natalie nearby, without anything to keep me connected to reality. I started drinking. Not socially, but like drinking alone in my apartment every night until I fell asleep. It was the only way I could turn off my brain, the only way not to think about everything I had lost. My work started to suffer. I arrived late, made mistakes, and eventually they fired me after like 6 months. I don't blame them. I was a total mess. Without a job, the money ran out quickly. I couldn't pay rent. I was surviving on instant noodles, and what little I had left I spent on alcohol. I reached a point where I literally didn't care if I lived or died. Like I woke up every morning disappointed to still be alive. It was Natalie who saved me, although I didn't want to be saved. She had been trying to contact me for weeks, but I ignored her calls, her messages, everything. Until one day she just showed up at my apartment. She had driven the 3 hours to see me, and when I opened the door and she saw me, the panic in her eyes made me realize how bad I was. The apartment was a disaster. I was a disaster. And Natalie just hugged me and said she was going to take me back with her, that she wasn't accepting no as an answer. She took me to her apartment and basically forced me to recover over the next 8 months. She went with me to therapy, cooked me healthy food, made sure I didn't drink, got me job interviews when I was ready to start looking again. It was brutal, honestly, because part of me wanted to keep sinking into depression and alcohol, but Natalie wouldn't let me. She told me every day that I was worth more than all this, that Joshua and Samantha didn't deserve to destroy my life, that I had to move forward for myself. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel human again. I got another job, this one at a smaller firm, but with a better environment. I started exercising, taking care of myself, rebuilding my life piece by piece. I still had bad days, days where everything seemed like too much. But I no longer wanted to die. I no longer needed alcohol to survive. 2 years had passed since the betrayal, when I received the news that Joshua had died in a car accident. He had been in the hospital for 4 days before passing away. I don't know how to describe what I felt when I found out. It wasn't joy exactly, but it wasn't sadness either. It was more like this weird feeling of closure mixed with guilt because part of me felt relief. I decided to go to the funeral in secret. I stayed in the back where nobody could see me well. I just wanted to see him one last time. Understand that he was really gone, that chapter of my life was closed forever. I saw Samantha there with a little girl. Madison must have been like 2 years old at that time. And I saw my parents consoling Samantha. And I left before the ceremony ended because I couldn't handle being in the same space as them. I thought that was it, that I could finally move on with my life without looking back. But 3 months later, my mother showed up at my work. I don't know how she got the address. She probably investigated or asked someone. But there she was, waiting for me in the lobby with Madison holding her hand. The girl was beautiful, I have to say, with Joshua's eyes and Samantha's smile. And it broke my heart to see her because she was the physical result of the betrayal, but she was also innocent in all of this. My mother asked me if we could go get coffee, and I accepted even though I didn't want to, more than anything because I didn't want to make a scene at my work. We sat in a cafe nearby, and my mother went straight to the point. She told me that Samantha had been diagnosed with glioblastoma, a super aggressive type of brain cancer, and that the doctors gave her between 1 and 4 years to live. She said Samantha was terrified, that she didn't know what was going to happen with Madison, that Joshua's parents couldn't take care of the girl because they were older and had their own health problems. Then she got to the real reason for her visit. My mother, with Madison sitting there coloring in a book she had brought her, asked me if I would consider adopting Madison when Samantha died. She said I was the only option, that the family needed to stay together, that Madison needed stability and love, and that they knew I was a good person who would do the right thing. I was in total shock. Were they asking me to raise the daughter of my ex-fiancé and my sister? The girl who existed because they betrayed me in the most horrible way possible? And they said it as if it were my obligation, as if I owed them something after everything they had done to me? I told them I needed time to think, basically to get them out of there without exploding in public, and I went straight to Natalie's house to tell her everything. Natalie listened to me and then told me something I'll never forget. She said nobody could force me to do anything, that after everything I had suffered, I had the right to say no, but that I should also think about Madison as a human being separate from all the drama, an innocent girl who didn't ask to be born in these circumstances. She told me to take my time, not to let anyone pressure me, and that whatever decision I made, she would support me. For a week, I didn't sleep well. I just tossed and turned in bed thinking about everything. I thought about Madison, about what it would be like to grow up knowing your mother betrayed you along with your father, about what it would be like to have an aunt who reminds you every day of the worst moment of her life. I thought about myself, about whether I had the emotional capacity to raise this girl, if I could see her every day without resentment. In the end, I decided I couldn't do it, that it wouldn't be fair to either of us, and I called my mother to tell her my decision. My mother cried on the phone, told me I was selfish, that how could I turn my back on my own niece, but I stood firm. I told her to find another solution, that maybe Joshua's parents could make a greater effort, or that they should look for other options, but that I couldn't be that person. I hung up feeling terrible but also relieved, thinking that now I could close this chapter forever. But then, like 2 weeks later, I found myself thinking about Madison constantly. I wondered how she was. If she understood that her dad had died, if anyone had explained to her that her mom was sick. I realized that even though I couldn't raise her, I also couldn't just ignore that she existed, that she was my niece regardless of how she came into the world. So I did something I never thought I would do. I called my mother and told her I wanted to visit Samantha. The visit was one of the hardest things I've done in my life. I arrived at my parents' house for the first time in 2 years, and everything looked the same but at the same time completely different. Samantha was on the couch, She looked fragile and scared, nothing like the confident and capricious girl I remembered. When she saw me, she started crying, and I cried too. And we stayed there hugging for I don't know how long without saying anything, because what could we say that would fix everything that had happened? Eventually, we talked. We really talked for the first time in years. Samantha apologized to me in a way that felt genuine, admitted she had been selfish and immature, that she had ruined my life because she was jealous and wanted what I had. She didn't justify anything, just told the truth. And although it didn't erase the pain, at least she was honest. I told her I didn't know if I could ever forgive her completely, but that I was willing to try. Not for her, but for Madison and for myself, because carrying so much hatred was killing me slowly. From that day on, I started visiting regularly. At first, it was uncomfortable, like being in the same room with my parents, and Samantha made me want to run. But little by little, it became easier. Madison was shy with me at first, but eventually started seeking me out, showing me her toys, asking me to play with her. I loved her. I was surprised to discover that I really loved her. This little girl who had no idea about all the chaos surrounding her birth. During the next 3 years, Samantha fought cancer with everything she had. There were moments where it seemed like she was going to get better, and moments where we all thought it was the end. I was there. Not all the time, but enough. Helping with Madison when Samantha was too sick to take care of her. Taking her to the park. Reading her stories before bed. My relationship with my parents improved a little. It never went back to what it was, but at least we could be in the same room without fighting. Samantha died exactly 3 years after our reconciliation, on a Tuesday afternoon with the whole family around. Madison was 5.5 years old at that time, and although she didn't fully understand what was happening, she knew her mom was leaving. It was devastating to see her cry. Say goodbye to Samantha. But there was also something peaceful in knowing that Samantha left surrounded by love and not resentment. After the funeral, the conversation about who would take care of Madison came up again. This time the conversation was different, more honest, without pressure or manipulation. I explained that I had thought a lot about this during the last 3 years, that I loved Madison, but that raising her alone wasn't the right thing for either of us. Joshua's parents, who had been more present than we initially thought they could be, said they wanted to try, that with help from my parents, they could give her a stable home. I said I wanted to be part of her life, not as a mother, but as an aunt, as a friend, as someone she could trust when she grew up and had questions about everything that had happened. So that's what I am now. The aunt who visits on weekends, who takes Madison for ice cream, who helps her with homework, who's there when she needs me, but who also has her own life. It's not the perfect ending that people would expect. There's no complete reconciliation with my family or total closure of all the pain, but it's real, and it's honest, and it's the best we could do with a horrible situation. I've forgiven Samantha, I think. Or at least I've let go of most of the hatred I felt. I can't forgive Joshua because he's dead, and I never had the chance to process that with him, but I don't hate him anymore either. I see my parents from time to time. Our relationship will never be what it was, but at least there's mutual respect. And myself, well, I'm still working on forgiving myself for all the decisions I made during those dark years, for the time I lost hating and destroying myself. But I'm doing better. Madison asked me last week why I didn't live with her like the other grandparents. I told her that sometimes families are complicated, but that doesn't mean we love each other any less, and she seemed to accept it. Someday, she's going to have harder questions. She's going to want to know the whole truth about how she was born and why her family is so strange, and when that day comes, I'm going to be there to give her honest answers. For now, it's enough that she's a happy girl who knows she has people who love her, regardless of how she came into the world. And that, I guess, is all I can do.